and welcome to Channel 2S, guys. I'm your host, Second Soundwave, and we just had a big hobby show in Japan, the All Japan Hobby Show, so let's do an episode of Gunpla News. But before we get too far into this, and before I forget, Kurosama and I started a podcast. The first episode wasn't great, as first episodes usually are, but there's probably a link to it down in the description, so if you want to go check that out and get some more high-quality Channel 2S and Kurosama content, there you go. Also, before we get to the news, I gotta give a quick thank you to channel sponsor New Type HQ. You guys almost definitely know New Type HQ by now, but just in case this is the first video on this channel you've seen for some reason, New Type HQ is a US-based Gunpla hobby shop that has not just Gunpla, but all sorts of other paint, accessories, tools, basically everything you need to do the hobby. They just recently got in these really cool battle damage diorama buildings, so if you want to pick up these or anything else from their store, make sure you use code CHANNEL2S for 10% off your order. And with that out of the way, it's on to the news. So the first kit we're looking at tonight is the premium Bandai Real Grade Phoenix. Now this is the inevitable recolor of the real grade unicorn that we all saw coming from a mile and a half away. In fact, there were really only a couple questions surrounding it. Would it be retail or P Bandai, and would it be the MSV or narrative version? Well, the answer is, in retrospect, the most obvious answer to each question, which is P Bandai, of course, and it's the narrative version. Of course. There's nothing I can really say about it. It looks exactly as you would expect a real grade Phoenix to look. We've seen the unicorn so many times, we've seen the Phoenix so many times. Anytime you see a new unicorn kit, you can pretty much exactly imagine what the Phoenix would look like based off of that mold. But yeah, I mean, it looks nice. From what I remember, the unicorn was undergated decently well, so I don't think we'll have too many nub issues with this kit. However, it is premium Bandai, so if you're going to get a hold of one of these in the US, it's probably going to set you back well over $100. Unless Bluefin brings it over, which is, I guess, kind of possible. I mean, it's the unicorn variant. They tend to sell pretty well. Okay, so next up we have something really cool that I've been wanting for a long time, and actually Bandai has faked me out with this kit before, because back when they teased that Sentinel Master Grade for Master Grade number 200 that turned out to be the crushingly disappointing Deep Striker, there was a short period when they first showed that teaser where I was really certain that that Master Grade, that Sentinel Master Grade they were teasing, was going to be a full armor Double Zeta Gundam made out of the new Zeta Gundam or Double Zeta Gundam Vericom mold. I love the FAZZ design, I think it's super cool, and I also really like the Double Zeta Vericom mold, so I was really hoping that that's what we were going to get. Well, it turns out we didn't end up actually getting that, but fortunately, it did inevitably happen. I mean, it's an amazing new mold, it's a really popular variant, of course Bandai is going to do it eventually. Now this is a standard resin prototype of the kit, totally unpainted, but because it's the FAZZ, this is actually pretty close to the colors you can expect it to be in anyways. It's basically this shade of gray, just with some blue and white details. So sculpting wise, I think this looks absolutely fantastic. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing with some parts of this kit. I'm sure there's going to be some interesting little design elements, like this this cable hose running off of the gun. Looks like it's got some, probably going to have like some bendy wires in there, sort of like, was it the heavy arms? I think it was the heavy arms that had like this ammo belt that they had wires inside of the segments for, and that was kind of a cool design, cool way for them to do that, so I'm hoping that's what we're looking at right here. I really think the way they stylized the head's quite cool. The level of just general surface detail in this thing is absolutely incredible, and it's a Vericos, so you know it's going to be amazing. Not sure what they're going to be making these waist hoses out of. I guess we're going to have to wait and see on that. But yeah, this kit looks beautiful. I love it. It's coming out in February 2020, and it is 11,000 yen, which is over $100, around $110, depending on what the exchange rate is at the time it comes out. He's not a cheap boy, but he sure is a cool one. Next up, we have a very cool surprise, and that is the Perfect Grade Perfect Strike Gundam. Now, the funny thing about the Strike Gundam Perfect Grade is it has been out for a long time. I think almost 15 years by this point. It's not a new kit at all. It's like 04, 05. And despite that, despite it being the Strike Gundam, the Gundam that is famous for all these different Striker Pack add-ons, despite it being a very popular Perfect Grade, we never got to see a launcher and sword pack for it, which was really weird. And come to think of it, I don't even think we got that many third-party add-ons for it. Everyone just kind of ignored all the add-on parts for the Strike. Thankfully, that is no longer the case with the Perfect Strike Perfect Grade. This includes the parts for the launcher and sword packs, plus those battery things that go on the Ale Striker. Now, I'm not sure exactly if this includes the parts to make the solitary versions of the launcher and sword packs, where they just have like the one shoulder piece, the weapon, and the backpack, but it would honestly surprise me me if some version of the kit didn't have that feature. Now I say some version of this kit because there are a couple different releases of it that are coming out. The first is a premium Bandai add-on set that just includes the launcher and sword parts for the people out there who already have themselves a perfect grade Strike Gundam. However, if you want to get the whole package, you can get the perfect grade Perfect Strike Gundam that includes all of the parts plus the Strike Gundam itself, and that is going to be coming out in February alongside the FAZZ, making for a very expensive month, especially since the full package is 25,000 yen. Even if you're just getting those two kits that I've talked about so far, that is $350 in Gunpla for the month of February. So better hope nothing cool is coming out in January. Or March. If you're getting the full Perfect Strike Experience package, you get a nice bonus in the form of a whole bunch of new armor pieces for the Strike Gundam. Almost every surface level part of the kit has been retooled to give it an extra level of detail. I've never had an issue with the look of the original Perfect Grade Strike. I always thought it was a really cool looking kit, but this extra bit of detail they added really takes it to the next level. I could go on and on about everything they've added, pointing out every little panel line, every change, every little added armor piece, every part they've kind of cut away a little bit, everything. There's so much added here. I'm just going to tell you that if you can see it, it's probably been retooled in some capacity. However, the inner frame and all the internals are still the same because despite its age, it's still a pretty good kit. Here it is from the side, so we can see those cool Ale Striker wings and the extended battery pack. Looks like we're going to have a little bit of articulation between the batteries, judging by those little joint pieces. They've added a little bit of extra detail to the front of the launcher barrel where it has these little yellow pieces that pop out. That has not been present on any previous version of the launcher strike to my knowledge. Really, overall, this looks like an absolutely amazing kit. I am a bit more of a fan of the Perfect Grade Strike Rouge, and that was kind of the version that I was planning on getting, but this kit definitely does throw a wrench in that. Depending on how things turn out next year, I might end up having to pick up this one instead. Although if I do get it, it'll be definitely a ways down the line because FAZZ is going to be taking priority for me for sure, and there's no way I'm buying both of these kits in the same month. Alright, so next we have a pretty decent spread of new Gundam Build Divers Re-Rise kits to talk about, and there's a few things here. I don't have great pictures of all of them right here in this article, so I'm kind of jumping back and forth a bit, but just to give you a general idea of what we got to look at here, we have two new armor sets for the core Gundam, we have a reveal of what that Dragon SD Gundam thing actually does, we have a build custom set based off the Gundam Celtsam, and an SD version of the core Gundam, or I guess the Earth 3 Gundam. Now regarding information on these two upgrades for the core Gundam, there's really not a whole lot of information we have to go off of. All they have is tentative names so far, but based off the previous naming conventions, they're probably going to be named after planets. I mean, that seems to be kind of the theme they're going with here. We have a white form that's pretty cool. It's got these kind of GPO-1FB style boosters on the back. He does have this pretty cool energy shield as well. There is also a dark navy blue form that I'm not really as big a fan of. So here's a bit of a clearer picture of that dark navy blue armor pack. It's got a bit of a wing motif going on with the shoulders and the arms. There's not really a whole lot else I can... Oh, well, I guess I could mention that he's got this really cool kind of face mask thing. But there's not a lot I can really say about this. I'm not super into any of the armor variants for the core Gundam. I do appreciate, though, that they're actually carrying on with the gimmick instead of doing what they did with the 00 Diver, where they kind of set it up like it was going to have these different upgrade packs and different equipment packs, and then they just made the one. I thought that was kind of annoying, so I'm glad that for this, at least they are pursuing the gimmick. So you know what? While I'm not a big fan of this Gundam design in general, round of applause, Bandai. You did all right. So next up, we have an all-new look at that SD Dragon Gundam thing we saw at the start of Build Divers Re-Rise, one of those early announced kits that they just showed in the Dragon form that obviously transformed, but they didn't really show anything of the other forms. They were kind of keeping it a secret. Well, here we have a look at what is either the other form or one of the other forms, and that is a set of Avalanche Exia style armor you can use with your kits. And I think this is a really cool idea. It's a nice evolution on the winning Gundam with its different weapons that it turned into, and it's a really surprising reference to the Avalanche Exia. I was not expecting that at all from this kit, so yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm impressed. And then next we have a build custom set with some Celtsam parts. We get the big extendo arm, we get the gun, we get the spear, basically all the coolest parts of the Gundam. So if you just like these parts of the design and you really don't care for the rest of it, there you go. You got a build custom set to work with. Another very exciting re-rise reveal that we didn't really get in full, but we got just a tiny little tease of it, and that is a proper high-grade kit of that very cool Wadom variant that I got excited for in the first trailer. This pretty much confirms that Bandai is working on a model kit of it, however it's too early in development for them to show it off at this event. But that is not going to stop me from looking forward to it. And then to nicely transition us from Build Divers re-rise into the SD Gundam line, we have an SD Cross Silhouette Earth 3 Gundam. Now, just like all the other cross-silhouette Gundams, you can build this in the two forms. You got the kind of G-generation video game form, and then you have the classic chibi form with the googly eyes. I think it's pretty cool. The design lends itself well to the SD aesthetic, and it looks like it's got pretty good color separation. And with how the Core Gundam and the Earth 3 Gundam interact, it seems to be literally made for that gimmick. In fact, that seems to be pretty much how they're marketing it. A very creative reworking of an established gimmick to fit a new design. Very clever. So next up, we have this funky looking boy, and that is a redesign, the industrial redesign of the original RX-78. This is part of the 40th anniversary Gundam celebration, and this is not like the live action movie design or anything for the Gundam. This is just another mechanical designer's take on the classic RX-78. I think it's pretty neat. I'm definitely going to be picking one up just because I love seeing interesting, unique takes on established designs, and I think that's pretty much what this is. And there's some really funky engineering going on with this too. So there's two big things you're going to notice when you look at this picture. Number one, he's got this really weird three-part foot split that you don't really see on high grades usually. And number two, there is some really weird stuff going on with his hip. So the way this model works is he actually does not have movable skirt armor of any kind. This is just one single fixed skirt. Instead, you can actually bend the thigh at two different places, which allows his leg to rotate forward. As bad as this looks aesthetically, I still think it's a really interesting piece of engineering. They're kind of doing a bit of a funky thing with the beam sabers where they rotate down flat against the back. And check out this abdomen joint. The design on this Gundam is going to be super weird, but at least it's going to have a lot of articulation. Here's a better look at that hip joint just so you can kind of see some more of what's going on here. We've actually got a bit of a multi-component extension here where this chunk of the hip rotates down from the main body, the joint can swivel down in here, and then we still have that extra hinge up here. So they went through a lot of effort on this kit just to make sure that you could move the legs while keeping the skirt armor as a single static piece. Man, is that some interesting engineering. So as far as I can tell, this kit is coming out in December, and it is going to be a little bit more expensive than you would expect for a standard high grade at 3,000 yen. However, it is a retail release. Unfortunately, not a retail release, but still welcome in my book because it's just been too long for this kit. We've waited way too long for it. It's the Master Grade Blast Impulse. It's P Bandai, but I don't care. We should have gotten this thing 5 years ago. The Blast Impulse Gundam, I want to say is the coolest version of the Impulse Gundam, but then again, the Sword Impulse does exist as well. Either way, it is criminally underrated. It always seems to get shafted by Bandai. They always make the Force Impulse, the Sword Impulse, and then they just kind of walk away before they do the Blast. I mean, it took us about 10 years to get a model kit of this design that wasn't a no grade. So the fact that we're getting a Master Grade only a few years after we finally got the high grade is kind of awesome. I already really like the Master Grade Impulse, and the Blast parts really don't look like they're cutting any corners at all. I'm always kind of wary of these P Bandai Master Grades because they tend to cheap out on some parts sometimes, but this one actually looks quite nice. Because we'd never gotten a Master Grade or really any kind of high quality model of this mobile suit before, I had no idea that the Beam Lancers or Beam Javelins or whatever you want to call it, yeah, that's a Beam Javelin, it says Beam Javelin right up there in big block letters, is actually stored inside of the back cannons. So you just flip this a little bit out to the side, you pull it out. It's a pretty clever bit of weapon storage. I was not expecting that. Alongside the new weapons, you also get a black and teal version of the Impulse Gundam, which looks really cool. And because Bluefin seems to have a bit of a thing for releasing P Bandai Seed and Wing kits in the US, I am still hoping that maybe, just maybe, Bluefin will bring this one over. Unfortunately, I don't think it's as likely as the real grade Phoenix, but I'm still going to hope for it anyways. I mean, just look at that detail. That is a nice looking kit. I wasn't really expecting to revisit the Barbatos today because I thought we'd pretty much seen everything we were going to see of this model, but it turns out that there's one last thing that I unfortunately had to report on, and that is that the kit has been delayed just a little bit from November to December. I honestly don't think it's that big a deal, and I kind of suspect that someone at Bandai just forgot to develop a big December kit, so they said, you know what? let's just take the biggest kit in November and just delay it a month so no one notices. And while it is, I guess, kind of disappointing if you were looking forward to this kit, it's just a month, so it's really not that big a deal. Alright guys, I think that's going to do it for Gunpla News tonight, so leave a like if you enjoyed. If you're new to Channel 2S, subscribe for more Gundam and Gunpla content, and as always, I'm your host, Second Soundwave, and I will see you next time. Take care, guys.